Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, one and all. I can see that there are still many people walking into the room, so we're going to start. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here again at the Maison de la Chimie for the 16th edition of the Parimat Days. Always more and more attendees, another record set this year. But above all, I would like to pay tribute to Philippe Louis-Dreyfus. It is sadly that we heard of his passing last week. He was a great figure of ship owning and international shipping. The former chair of Armateurs de France, he was recognized for his strategic vision and still on the front line to defend the merits of the French ship-owning business. He was always a great defender of the energy transition in the maritime sector. As recently recalled by Armateurs de France, Edouard, his son, is currently the chairman of Armateurs de France. Philippe Louis-Dreyfus was an advocate for speed reductions on line ships, which he considered was the best way, the most efficient and the most accessible in the short-term way to reduce emissions and decarbonize the global fleet. Our thoughts go with his family and friends. Thank you to the Sésame team, as always, for the quality of their organization work in this event, our event. And this year with the creation of an application that will make life easier for you over these 2 days. I think you've all installed it on your smartphones. And I would also like to thank the members of the organizing committee for being able to put together an agenda which is aligned with the challenges that our shipping and aviation industries are still facing in their day-to-day business. Our sector of maritime insurance is still faced with the trends that we had identified in the last few years, maritime events, in particular fires on ships. In the last 2 weeks, we saw the Morning Midas car carrier born with its 2,000 cars, 800 of them electric. It caught fire off the shores of Alaska. It was quickly abandoned by its crew. It took 10 days for the first tugboat to be able to reach it. We also saw in India the tragic event, the explosion followed by a fire of the container ship YI-503. And tomorrow afternoon, we'll have a roundtable devoted to rescue and salvage at sea, and we'll be delighted to welcome one of the major actors and even the biggest player in international salvage, Smith Salvage, with Alco Alberta. The second main trend that led us to discuss that subject last year is cargo theft. The figures are staggering. They're are published by CAPA, the Transported Asset Protection Association, with telling figures in Europe, the Middle East and Africa, 1.2 million euros stolen every 24 hours in supply chains. That says a lot, and tomorrow Thorsten Dommens, CEO of TAPA, will tell us more, with the presence also of Colonel Jean-Charles Bidot for the Central Office Against Crime in France. And also we'll talk about geopolitical instability. I should have led with that. I think it is not really necessary to remind you of what's in the news. Yet the ongoing war between Israel and Iran could lead us to think that there might be disruptions to fear in the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, we heard that the Iranian parliament had given its go-ahead to a blockade in the Straits. So for the moment, it's an agreement on principle by the parliament. The decision hasn't yet been made, but we know that the Strait accounts for about 20% of global oil trade and also liquefied natural gas trade. These tensions could also jeopardize the recently agreed ceasefire between the US and the Houthi rebels regarding potential attacks in the Red Sea. The entire morning will be devoted to the sensitive issue of geopolitics. We'll be delighted at the beginning of the morning to welcome Thomas Gomard, head of IFRI, and then we'll take stock of war risk insurance for shipping and aviation, and also with a legal precedent review, and we'll see how much the commodities and cargo commodities industry is in the front line given the instability caused by notably the war in Ukraine, tensions in the China Sea and in the Middle East, of course. We can already see that geopolitical trends, those that I've just talked about briefly, are growing, and they could distract from the efforts to be made in terms of decarbonization and emissions reductions. But the shipping industry will continue its efforts towards decarbonization, and the Parimat days are still supporting this trend. Tomorrow, yes, exactly tomorrow, we'll talk about decarbonization in land freight, but also offshore wind, and we'll shine a light on the foundations Tara, Ocean, and Plastic Odyssey. Innovation is still central to our ambitions. This afternoon, we'll hear about artificial intelligence and neuroscience as applied to shipping and aviation. Cyber risk is still a central concern for us. Tomorrow, we'll have a roundtable about the impact of frequency jamming in global trade. And this year, we'll deepen our knowledge about subsea cables and the place of nuclear in shipping with experts amongst us to share their knowledge. Regarding aviation, the recovery of air traffic in terms of passengers has been confirmed. The growth in terms of passengers has been 10% year on year. And this figure of 10% is also the growth in earnings for the whole industry. Growth prospects for aviation are, however, disrupted by geopolitical uncertainty and also by the impact of tariffs decided by the US in particular. Like shipping, aviation feeds on openness to the world, so any restriction is of course cause for concern. Recently, air crashes that had a significant impact on the market have taken place. Of course, I'm thinking of the Air India and Delta Airlines crashes that happened this year. Tomorrow, we'll have a moment to focus on aviation safety, and there will also be a discussion on the challenges of space insurance. Like every year, we'll be delighted to give the Student Award. That's a must-see tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. I now declare the 16th edition of the Parimat Days open.